back. Hello, mamas. I'm excited to be with you today. Now, I have to be honest, this is the third time I am recording this podcast because the first two times my mic didn't work and then the recording equipment didn't work, only to find out the whole problem was my computer. So I've switched computers. And actually, I'm grateful that I've had to record it again because I did a coaching call with Nicole Schiffler and we talked about this very thing, and she brought in some more things that I'm like, oh man, I need to talk about that as well. Specifically, the happy hormones that our bodies produce, and I want to talk about those a little bit. But today's subject is one that I think I've yet to meet somebody who doesn't struggle with this, who is a mother already. Well, and they don't even have to be a mother, just but it's predominantly mothers who struggle with this. And so today we're going to talk about self-care and filling our own cups and what that looks like and how do we stay sane when our kids are with us almost the whole day. Well, not almost. They're with us the whole day, every day. So let's talk about this, because one of the things that I experienced when I first started homeschooling, and I felt guilty about it, but it's pretty normal for most women, is I felt guilty that I missed the hours by myself. I went through a grieving process, and I find that this is pretty typical. I thought it was just me until I started talking to other people, other homeschool moms. But this notion that, like, we have in our heads, like the expectation that once our youngest goes to school, then we have these hours to ourselves, and or the older kids go to school, and then we've got this time with our babies to really get to know them. And when we start homeschooling, we give that up. We give up the alone time. We give up that extra time if you have a baby. I started homeschooling when I didn't have babies at home. I had, a small child, but they were about to go into kindergarten. But I went through a grieving process that I wouldn't have that time to myself, that suddenly I had always expected that once my kids went to school, I'd have this time by myself. And with one decision, that changed. I do get, I guess I should say last year, we ended up doing an enrichment program through our state that's once a week. And I put all the kids on the same day with the enrichment program. And so there was one day that I got to myself. This year, one child wanted to do a different enrichment program and the others want to do their enrichment program the same day. And so I have one day where one of my kids is home with me, another day where the others are home, but that one's not there. But if you feel guilty that you are grieving the fact that you will not have time to yourself, I'm telling you, don't feel guilty about that. It's part of the process. Expect to go through the grieving process. It's a totally typical and natural response. And don't feel guilty for feeling those ways or beat yourself up for it. Go through the process and then keep going. So let's talk about the happy hormones and some things that we can do for self-care. This topic is very personal to me. I have struggled with depression since I was 14 years old, when depression wasn't a thing back then. I mean, it was, but it wasn't really talked about. Mental health wasn't discussed in the 90s, in my opinion. And I have learned over the years, I was medicated as a teenager. I did, the Prozac and the Zoloft and all of those things. As a single young adult, I went to school in a very, very sunny place. And I found that I was able to keep the depression at bay, which is interesting because I grew up in Austin, Texas, which is very sunny, but when I went to a private university in Hawaii for college, and before you start to judge me, I want you to know that I paid for every dime of that. And I had to work multiple jobs to be able to pay to go there. But when I got there, I found that I didn't need the medication over time. Like the longer I was there, I found I didn't need the medication because I was outside all the time. The Our classes were indoors, but to get from one class to the next, you had to be outside. To get from my dorm, I had to walk everywhere. And then when I moved off campus, I had to walk or ride my bike everywhere. So I found that I started getting significantly more exercise, and I started being in the sun almost all the time. Whereas in Texas, it was so hot that during the summers, we'd play outside and we'd swim. But then there's a point that we had to be in the air conditioning because it was just too hot, So, so I want to talk about that. So there's they call them the 4 happy hormones. I guess technically one of them is not technically a hormone, but let's talk about the different 4 natural hormones that our body produces that give us that feeling and that sense of well-being and happiness. So the first one is dopamine. Some ways to stimulate dopamine are rewards. It's like the reward motivation hormone. We can have new experiences. We learn something new. We've had people, doctors have found that when people learn something new, it produces dopamine. Exercise, meditation, new experiences. Second hormone is oxytocin. That's the love and connection hormone. So acts of kindness, spending time with other people, hugs, all of those things produce oxytocin, which is interesting because hugs, like I am not a touchy person. And my kids are all like, their first love language is physical touch. And my dead last same with my husband, and my dead last love language is physical touch. And I'm the kind of person that part of me has wondered if I am somewhat neurodivergent, because too much touch, I get very overwhelmed and overstimulated. And so I chuckled when it said hugs, because I'm like, oh, I get hugged all day by everybody. And sometimes I'm like, okay, no more touching. Got plenty. You leave me alone. I don't know if I'm the only person like that. That's like, please, I'm overstimulated. Just don't touch me anymore. But I get that way. But oxytocin is that connection hormone. The next one is serotonin. That helps put us in a good mood, good things that produce that: nature walks, gratitude, sunshine. Again, I was getting a lot of exercise and a lot of sunshine. So when I was in college, I have since really only grappled with depression when I've had babies and had postpartum. And I didn't even have postpartum with all of my children, just a couple of them. And at that point, I went on medicine for a short time, went off it. For me, I found that the exercise and the sunshine piece actually did more for me than the synthetic medicine. However, that may just be me, and every single person is different. So if you have depression or anxiety or things like that, I am not knocking anybody being on medication. People have to do what is best for them. And so what I found for me, that I'm able to keep my mental health in check through doing certain things, exercise being one of them. And my friends, I've been overweight most of my life. And in the last 6 months, I've been really serious about my health, which we'll talk about here in a second. And I found the exercise legitimately makes a difference for me every day. I don't exercise. Well, I try to take a walk every day, but I'm not like getting my heart rate up. It's more moseying than anything. But okay, last one is endorphins, and they help with pain and stress. Dark chocolate helps with endorphins. Laughter, exercise. Exercise seems to come up a lot. So, but laughter is also there, which we're going to talk about. So, the 10 things that I do for self-care. Now, I don't do all of these things every day, but these are the things that I personally do to help when I feel myself going into a dark place, when things get really tough with homeschooling, when things are extra stressful. These are things that I do or have done to help increase the happy hormones that help me be able to regulate and be able to take care of myself. I used to think that self-care was, you're going to get your nails done and get a massage. And those things are great and good. In the long run, they don't help us the way that the happy hormones can help us naturally. So let's get started. Number one, I am a religious person. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus Christ. I spend time in sacred texts. Now, I have friends of other faiths that are, I have friends that are Hindu. I have friends that are Buddhist. I have friends that are Jewish. I have friends that are Muslim. And it seems to be pretty universal that spending time in our sacred text, whatever your sacred text might be, is helpful because that helps us connect with deity, and that helps. So time in sacred text. And I wish I could say I was perfect with it. And I wish I could say, yes, I read my scriptures every day for an hour. I'm just super righteous. But the reality is some days are harder than others. And some days I'm like, okay, I've got a verse. I can get a verse in, and that's my offering for the day. I try to spend more time than that, but it doesn't always happen. Some days when I have to wake up super early to do something, my time gets switched, but I do try to make it a priority. Again, it's not always perfect, but I try to offer something. So time in sacred text. And that goes along with a learning piece that helps us increase our dopamine. Number two, prayer and meditation. Two separate things. Prayer is that connection to deity. Meditation, I went through a meditation class last year. I'm not good at it. It was an Eastern meditation class, and the whole focus of the class was like really focusing on breathing and getting really good breath. It was very fascinating to me, very cool. I used to have bad connotations about meditation because I didn't really know what it was, but I found, and those of you who are avid meditators can correct me in the comments, but prayer is like my communion with God. And then meditation is like just emptying my mind and focusing on my breath and really just letting my mind be empty and just focus on the breathing of it, and allowing the breath to fill me up with life. So I do both of those things. Again, I have to commune with God on a daily basis. It helps me stay grounded. It helps me stay sane. And I love, there's a quote from Shadowlands, the movie with Anthony Hopkins, and his friend at Oxford challenges him. He's a fellow at Oxford. And one of the other fellows is like, why do you pray? And he said, well, he says something like, do you pray to change the will of God? And he's like, no, I pray because it changes me. That's why I pray. And so for me, prayer has become really important for self-care because it changes me. Okay, so that's number two. Number three is learning something new. Now, I listen to audiobooks all the time. My sister said, how are you able to get through so many audiobooks? I'm so busy during the day. And now that we started homeschooling, I don't have time to read. I don't have time to listen to audiobooks. But in the car, for me, my kids like to listen to certain books. We can go through a lot of books. Sometimes we'll go through the history of the world, which was put together by Susan Weiss Bauer, which is fabulous for history. And so if I'm in the car by myself, that's a time that I can listen to audiobooks. Sometimes on my walks, I'll listen to audiobooks. When I'm cooking, I'll listen to audiobooks. When I'm doing any sort of cleaning or organizing, I listen to audiobooks at that time. If the kids are helping me or we're all working together on something, we'll listen to music or listen to an audiobook together. But if it's just me doing the thing, like if I am folding laundry, and it's my kids do their own laundry now, but when I'm doing my laundry, I will sit and listen to an audiobook. I find great joy in learning something new. And I didn't know I was interested in certain things until several years ago. My husband's an entrepreneur. He runs a real estate team, and I didn't really help. I was just raising the kids and taking care of that aspect of our life. And I say just, that's a lot. but I read a Time magazine article, and it was all about culture and um, behavioral economics, and I happened upon it, and I read it, and I was so fascinated. Now, this is embarrassing to say, but I hadn't read a nonfiction book for years prior to that. And I was so fascinated by this Time magazine article that I looked up every book that they referenced in the article. And at the time, we didn't have a lot of money. So I went to the library, I checked it out. Now, if I start to listen to the book and I really like it, then I'll just get it on Audible. But then, because I'll re-listen to books over and over. But then I went to the library, I check out the CDs, and then I listened to all these different books. And I felt so filled and I felt fulfilled. And that's actually when I started really helping my husband in the business, because I was learning all these new things and was able to help him implement some of the cool things that I was learning. Um, so I attest to when we learn something new, whether it's something that we read or we learn a new skill, like it increases the dopamine in our system, which is really fascinating and really cool. For Christmas, a friend of mine surprised me with a skein of real wool. Like, it's not synthetic at all. It's not like from Walmart. Like, she went to a specialized wool store, got me this skein of wool and a set of knitting needles. And she's like, for Christmas, I wanted to get you something very special, and I'm going to teach you how to knit. My friends, I'm so excited because I've always wanted to learn how to knit. I've tried learning on YouTube. It's not been great. I've learned one stitch and I think I've been doing it wrong. And she is so good. And I'm so excited. And even the thought of the gift, like after I opened it, you know, I got giddy about it, right? The dopamine was produced and I hadn't even learned anything yet. I was just excited that I'm going to be learning it. So learning something new, whether it's a skill, whether it's a new concept or idea, helps us with those happy hormones. It helps us regulate, which is kind of cool. Number 4 is walking. Okay, so I try to walk every single day. And before you think, oh my gosh, I could not do that, I can't, because that's what I thought initially. You have to understand how I got to this point. Now, number 1, like I said, I've struggled with weight my whole life. So during 2020, in March of 2020, when everything shut down, somebody posted on Facebook, this lady that I know, a good friend of mine actually, posted on Facebook that she was doing a walking challenge, and she did hashtag 2 miles a day, 30 days. And she said, I'm doing this challenge, walk 2 miles a day, and then you have to take a picture and post it on Facebook every single day. And I was like, well, that's cool. And this is super embarrassing. But somebody who was really, really overweight that I knew, like really, like we're talking significantly overweight, posted and replied to her page. They're like, I'm doing this too. And here's my first picture. Now, this is going to sound terrible, but I literally thought, well, if they could do it, I could do it too. I mean, why not? It can't be that terrible. So at the same time, it was within a couple days, I decided to reach out to this lady that I knew who is a trainer at a local gym. And she's probably the most fit person I've ever met. And so I called her. I'm like, hey, I've got a question for you. If I wanted to look like you, what would I need to do? And she's like, you need to strength train and you need to watch what you eat. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but I see you running in our neighborhood every day. Do I need to run every day? And she's like, to get that body. And she's like, oh, I don't run for physical fitness. I run for mental health. I'm like, wait, what? And she's like, yeah, the only reason I run is because it's the only time that I really feel like I get my thoughts to myself without somebody wanting to talk to me, and she still had littles at home. And so I'm like, oh, she's like, I run for my brain. And so I started thinking, okay, I'm going to walk 2 miles a day every day, but I'm going to do it for my brain. And I decided at that moment that I was not going to walk super fast because I'm already not a fast walker. I'm a mosier. And I have a hard time when I walk with people, like they go really fast and I'm like, and then it's not fun anymore. And then I don't want to do it. But when my mindset shifted from I'm going to go do exercise to I'm just going to go and enjoy the walk and enjoy being alone and enjoy being with my own thoughts, everything changed. And suddenly it wasn't hard to go on a walk anymore. And I found I mean, there's some days that I'm like, oh, I've got to go on a walk. But the second I get about 10 minutes in, I feel fabulous. Now, so I did the 30-day challenge, and then I felt so good that I did a challenge for an entire year. And so I did 365 days after that first 30 days, and I felt so great. And then after that year, I fell off the wagon, and it took me a few months to get back on. Now I walk about 4 to 5 days a week, and I walk 30 minutes a day. Anything over 20 minutes, the endorphins start to kick in, like legitimately. The happy hormones will start to kick in, and it starts to feel really good. The other day, last week, I was really sick, and I finally felt good enough to walk, and I went out, and it was freezing cold, and it was snowing, and it actually felt really good. I got all bundled up, and I went for my walk, and I was very slow because I was walking through the snow. But I felt so good and so good coming home. And I listened to beautiful Christmas instrumental music. And it was just a perfect morning. The sun was coming up and doesn't get much better than that. So I try to walk 4 to 5 times a week. I'm not fast. I'm more mosey. I don't even think I get my heart rate up technically. But it's become really an important thing for me personally. Sometimes some of my kids will want to come with me. Sometimes my husband wants to come with me, but most of the time it's by myself, and it gives me a chance just to think. I used to listen to audiobooks when I walked, but I realized I just needed to just be. And so I try to listen to music or just be with my thoughts. Now, the interesting thing in Japan, they call walking in nature and just absorbing the nature. They call it forest bathing, and they found there's all these benefits of forest bathing, decreased stress and just decreased anxiety, and all these benefits that come from being amongst the trees. So another thing about me walking is I don't walk on a treadmill, because I get really lazy. And then after 5 minutes, I get off the treadmill and I don't feel like I went anywhere because I didn't. And even the treadmills that have like screens with nature doesn't do it for me. The other thing is, like, when I go on a walk and I have to walk, I'm like, okay, I've got my 30-minute walk. When I walk for 15 minutes, I have to get home. So I found early on that it was great motivation and incentive to walk at least 15 minutes, because then it took me 15 minutes to get home. Actually, when I first started walking to do 2 miles, it took me between 45 minutes and an hour. Anyway, but I had to get home. The other thing that I've learned, and just probably TMI for most of you, is I don't eat anything or drink anything before I go on my walk, mostly because for some reason, the walking gets my digestive system really going. And there have been times that I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to get home. If I ate something or drank something or had a big thing of water, if I do drink a big thing of water, I make sure that I use the facilities before I go on the walk, because otherwise I have had, it's embarrassing to say, but once I had an accident, it was super embarrassing. But I learned the hard way. I don't drink or eat anything before my walk. I make sure my bladder and bowels are emptied, and then I go for my walk, because otherwise you can have an accident. And ever since having babies, my bladder has never been the same. Okay, so number 4 is I go on a walk, and it really is, it really does help. One other quick story. During 2020, in our business, we had some kind of hard things happen. We had a team member who had been with us for years left, and then she took half of our team with her. And it was pretty devastating. And I thought about it. I remember one morning waking up and just being just downtrodden about the whole thing. And I got up and went on my walk, and the sun was rising, and the oranges and purples against the mountain were so beautiful. And and I felt like I was really an open vessel for God to communicate with me. And just, I felt such a sense of peace wash over me. And this thought that, hey, the world is bigger than this little situation, and everything's going to be okay. And I felt such a sense of peace that morning that I felt like it'd be okay. And ultimately it was like, we got through it. It all worked itself out. It was hard, but I honestly felt like those walks became and that that divine intervention in my heart and mind, it connected me to the divine and enabled me to keep a calm mind during a really hard time. So there's that. So that's number 4 as I walk. Number 5, exercise or strength training. 6 months ago, I started strength training. I guess it's 7 months now. I've lost almost 50 pounds. I also started really watching what I eat because I found, wow, sugar really affects me. Not that I gave up sugar altogether. I certainly did not. But I'm just very careful about what and when I eat now, because I get really tired. And when I get tired, it's harder to homeschool and it's harder to do anything. And so I've had to really watch what I put into my body and how it makes me feel when I have those things. And there's certain foods that just hurt when I eat them. I don't eat very much dairy anymore because I just get a stomach ache, and then that exercise and strength training. So it was about 7 months ago, I started exercising because I saw how my parents were doing. Now, my parents live in a different state, and my sisters are angels. They take care of my parents every single day. But my parents are in terrible health. And it was about that time I saw a meme, and the meme said, you in 30 years, you can either choose hard now or you can choose hard later. And there was 2 pictures of a man side by side who was in his 80s. And on the picture where it says you can choose the hard now is a picture of the man smiling, and he was dressed in, golf attire, and he was out golfing, and you could tell he was really healthy, and he was walking. And the other picture said, or you could choose hard later. And it was the picture was the same man in a hospital gown with a walker on a breathing machine, looking as sickly, terribly sickly, with orthopedic socks on, or, those compression socks. And that, coupled with watching my own parents and realizing that if I didn't change my physical habits and start strength training and exercising and making a strong body, that I would pay for it later, as my parents had and are. And so I invested in a trainer she's a trainer and accountability coach. She tells me what exercises to do. She's actually remote, so she tells me what exercises to do, what I can and can't eat. I have to log my food every day, which I had never done before and I just do it on MyFitnessPal because it's free. And then I do my strength training 3 to 4 days a week. I'm supposed to be doing it 4 days a week. As a matter of fact, on yesterday, she texted and said, this week I expect you to do all 4 days. And so I found, like, when I really fatigue my muscles from strength training, I feel really good. Like, the happy hormones are legitimate. I don't feel good doing it. I don't feel good in the mornings when I have to think about doing it. I don't feel good at those times, but I feel good after. And it feels good to have the sore, like, I worked really hard muscles. Like, like, it feels good. But it legitimately has helped me have a much better homeschooling year this year because I'm releasing those happy hormones. Okay, so that's number 5, is doing some sort of exercise slash strength training where you are exerting your muscles. Again, my walks are not exerting anything. I'm moseying. Pardon me. My strength training, it's hard. I get tired and I actually get out of breath when I'm doing my reps. Again, I've lost 50 pounds and it's been kind of crazy. It's been, 7 months. So it's not a lot, but I'm really proud of myself. It's been good. Number 6 is cleaning a space or organizing something. I'm not saying organize your whole house. I'm saying, for me, even if I can just wipe down a counter that I've avoided for a couple hours that has like dried rice on it and leftover cereal, like I feel better. I feel better in a clean, organized space. As I've mentioned in the past, in my heart, I am a minimalist. In practice, I'm totally not a minimalist. I want to be, but I'm not. As a matter of fact, I don't know if any of you do this, but like when we have company over, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's company coming over. And I look at the dining room table and it's become like a storage unit. And so I'm like, hurry, get a laundry basket. And we fill the laundry basket, take everything downstairs, and then tidy up the house really fast. And I've read all the books. I've read Marie Kondo and The Magic of Tidying It Up. And I've read Peter Walsh. It's all too much. Like I've read the books. I want inspiration. I watch Hoarders. And then suddenly I get this desire to clean and declutter my house. But the other day, my niece called and said, hey, we're going to be stopping through on our drive to Kansas. Is there any way we could stay with you? And we have a guest bedroom. And guess where we've been putting all the laundry baskets and all the boxes when I've had other people over? Yep, you guessed it, in the guest bedroom. So we had to take all 11 boxes out that filled the guest bedroom. And they're sitting in my basement. My goal this week is to go through 1 box a day. I feel better when things are decluttered, but it's a major ordeal for me to do it. And I found if I can just do it in smaller bite-sized pieces each day, rather than trying to do it all at once, it gets done. Kind of like with laundry. I learned early on, if I could do 2 loads of laundry a day and wash them, dry them, and they're smaller loads, and I, hang them up quickly, then I don't have the laundry mess that I used to have. I've also limited, like with my kids, that they don't have more clothes than can fit in a laundry basket, like whites and colors. So 2 laundry baskets technically. And now my kids know how to do their laundry. So they take their day to get their laundry done too. So for me, cleaning a space or organizing something, and it can be little, like, don't do the junk drawer, by the way. Don't start with the junk drawer. The junk drawer is not little. And that becomes if you gave a mouse a cookie. That's what I found. But if you can start with, okay, I'm just gonna sweep this little mess up. I can't even do the whole kitchen floor. I'm just gonna do all these crumbs that somehow landed right here. I'm gonna sweep these up, or I'm gonna at least put these dishes in the dishwasher or whatever. Something small. It feels better, and it helps to release some of the happy hormones, even the smallest bit of cleaning. So that's number 6. Number 7 is when I really struggle with stuff, I have a journal that I write in, and oftentimes I will force myself to put in 3 things that I'm grateful for. When Shawn Achor wrote a book called The Happiness Advantage, he was a professor at Harvard, and he's hilarious. If you ever watch his TED Talk, I'll actually put a link to his book and his TED Talk because they're phenomenal. But he was a professor at Harvard that started doing positive psychology and the psychology of happiness, and then he wrote the book The Happiness Advantage. One of his major contentions in the book is that when we start to really look for things to be grateful for, like deep in our soul, not surface level gratitude, but like, man, I am really legitimately grateful for this sunrise. I'm really legitimately grateful that I overcame the sickness and I'm not coughing anymore. Like when we have gratitude, it changes our brain chemistry. It affects us. So I have to be very conscious, especially if I become negative Nelly during the day. I have to stop and think about the things that I legitimately deep down am grateful for. And it becomes easier as I do it too. Like in the moment, I'm like, okay, oh, I'm actually grateful for this too. And I'm very grateful that the kitchen is mostly clean. It becomes easier. Okay, so that's number 7 is gratitude. And it does change the brain chemistry and helps us in the long run. Okay, number 8 is be with others. And this brings out the oxytocin, that we need other people. Even those who are introverts need other people. We are by nature social creatures. Now, how much we are with other people, I know we're with our kids all the time, but we, women need other women. And so if you can find a co-op group, or even if you can get together with friends once a month. I joined a book club that meets once a month. I go about once every other month, but that connection is so important for me, because if I am by myself too long, I start to wallow in self-pity. I don't know why. I just do. So I find that, but at the same time, if I'm around people way too much, then it becomes a little overstimulating for me. So once every other month with book club is great. I also go to church. And so when I see the ladies at church, um, it's good for me. But then having one-on-one time with people, I try to talk to my sisters every day, because it's so good for our emotional connection to have that oxytocin released. We need other people, and women need other women. We do. And we laugh harder when we're with other women than we do with men. It's important to connect with our spouses as well. Don't get me wrong. But it's important to also connect with people outside of our family. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It can be a little bit. Like I said, once every other month, I go to book club, and it's very fulfilling for me, and it fills me for the month, and then I'm good. Other people need it more than that. Some people need it less. It really depends on the person. So that's number 8. Number 9, another thing I do to help with self-care is I listen to really beautiful music. Now, if you have not heard the Enola Holmes soundtrack, the Enola Holmes 2 soundtrack, there's a song in it, and I listen when I'm really down in the dumps. I listen to the song. It's called One Flame to Start a Fire or something like that. I can't remember. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Anyway, love this song, and it lifts me up right away. Music can help lift us and move us. It helps change our brains and our moods, and it's fabulous. So if you're down in the dumps, put on some really great music. Don't put on depressing music, my friends. Put on some fabulous, uplifting music that makes you want to smile or dance or feel better or love the world, right? Because all different music has different effects on us. But choose really uplifting music. It'll help. Number 10, the last thing that I do when I'm struggling is I have to laugh. So, little secret about me, once upon a time, I used to be a comedian. Back when I was in my early 20s, I did stand-up, and then I also did sketch comedy. In my 30s, I did some improv comedy. I was a part of an improv troupe for a time. I don't have time for that now. And frankly, I feel like I've become a little bit more cynical. And so I don't know. I haven't done stand up for a very, very long time. So when people ask me, they're like, you want to do some, you should do stand up again. But I feel like that part of my life has passed. And I don't even know if I'd be good at it anymore. I used to be fabulous at it. Decided not to go circuit, decided that was not the life that I wanted. But I found that laughter is really important. I had learned early on that in the brain, there's the line between laughter and tears is really thin. And I'd rather laugh than cry. I really would. And sometimes I'll laugh to the point of crying. So I will look up some good YouTube videos. I'll look up just funny stuff. Leanne Morgan, if you've ever heard of that comedian, she is so hysterical. Nate Bargatze, he's really popular right now. He's a very dry comedian, but I will turn on funny things that make me laugh. I have a couple go-to sketches that I go to all the time that just make me laugh. I have to say, and somebody had told me that many years ago. They're like, if you are really down, see if you can laugh. So I have one of our employees who I'm very close friends with as well. And she's worked for us forever and ever and ever. And one day I went into the office and she was like, I was like, how are you? And she's like, I am stressed and I'm frustrated and this is what's going on at home. And, I'm dealing with this work stuff. And she's like, I'm just so stressed. I'm like, okay, we're going to take 15 minutes. And first of all, get up and stretch because you've been sitting in that chair for a couple hours. And she's like, okay. And I said, all right, now let me borrow your computer for a second. So I pulled up some really hysterical sketches and she and I started laughing, like belly laughing and crying because they were so funny. And she's like, oh my gosh, how did you know that's what I needed? I needed to laugh. And I'm like, because everybody needs to laugh when we're stressed. Like we need to find something really funny and then belly laugh because it releases endorphins and we need those endorphins. And then have a little bit of dark chocolate, which is not my favorite. I prefer milk chocolate. But those are my 10 things. Time in sacred text, prayer and meditation, learn something new, walk, exercise or strength train, clean a little space, gratitude, have gratitude, be with other people, turn on great music, find something to laugh about or watch something really funny. Do something. Now, if you're really down and it's one of those mornings where you're like, I can't even get up, then my suggestion is just do something. Put on your bra, brush your teeth, put on a little bit of makeup, do something, and then do another thing, and then another thing, but do something. So, my friends, today, as I'm recording this, it is the Christmas season. Christmas is in 1 week. And I know many of you are probably stressed and overbooked and overcommitted. So my hope and prayer for you this week is that you slow down a little bit, that you laugh, that you breathe, that you take some time to take care of your personal needs. Do one of the 10 things on the list. Do all of them. Do not, do one. It's fine. But my prayer for you is that you will feel strength and you will feel that you'll feel the love of God this week, that you will feel okay this week, that you'll be able to be the mom that you want to be, or as much as possible, maybe not perfect, right? But you're trying. So with that, I wish you a very Merry Christmas. I recorded a very short little Christmas thing for next week that just wishes you a Merry Christmas because I didn't want to do a whole podcast and take you away from your family. So it's just like a minute and a half of Merry Christmas. So have a great week. Hope you guys do great. Go make yourself laugh. Talk to you later. If you enjoyed this today, please like and subscribe. You could also join our private Facebook group at School to Homeschool or sign up for our newsletter at www.schooltohomeschool. Have a great day.